You may know him for his time as a VJ for the Canadian television station, Much Music, or for his interviews during the run of CBC's late-night talk show, The Hour. We're talking about legendary broadcaster George Stroumboulopoulos. He's with us in studio. He is starting a cross-Canada road trip this summer, asking people what Canadian TV shows and movies made you, and beginning in Vancouver right now and finishing up in Toronto by September. The Stories That Made Us is a partnership with Made Nous and Telefilm Canada, rather. And George has been good enough to join us in studio this morning. Good morning to you.
You ain't seen nothing like the mighty Quinn. Hello, sir.
How are you?
Well, it's so good to see you again.
Good, nice to see you. I have to ask you something off the top here. Is, of course, you're known for your very deep knowledge of Canadian culture, Canadian music, film, television, all of it. Sadly, yesterday we lost Chuck Mangione, Canadian jazz icon, composed the theme to a mid-'70s CBC program. It ran from 1975 to 1978. It was a cop show. It starred Donnelly Rhodes, who is contractually obligated to be in every CBC property from 1968 to 2009. I
think we've all had that experience.
And a lesser known, in a hunky kind of 70s way, Jonathan Welsh. Here is some of the theme. Can you name the program?
What's crazy, Stephen, is that this record, the Feel So Good record that Mangione put out, had this song on it, came out the end of the same year that the Sex Pistols, the Ramones, and the Dead Boys put out an album, all in 1977.
Isn't that crazy?
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, it's pretty crazy. This is, I know the song, but what's the show?
Side Street.
Yeah, so this is that Toronto crime show. I was more
exactly
of a seeing things guy.
Right.
Louis Del Grande.
Louis Del Grande.
Playing Louis Ciccone, yeah. So,
okay.
But yes, no, for sure. There was a little moment where we had some Toronto cop shows before the new one. What is it now, Law & Order Toronto? Or something like that that's there?
I know, and I don't know why I remember it. I think it ran on Sunday nights or something, and I just remember that I loved the theme song, and I thought it was, here we are talking about this, and it occurred to me that I remember the song and Chuck Mangione passing and all of that. So this is all about your little project here, not little project, your project is all about celebrating Canadian media and television and film. Where are we in Canadian television and film right now, do you think?
I think we make incredible stuff. And what's interesting about getting together on this project and really planning a cross-country trip, hitting the coast to coast to coast on this, is just to remind everybody of how much we've always done this. Mm-hmm. If you go back and watch some of the old shows in the 70s like this, or we always talk about beachcombers in Canada for a certain era.
Sure.
But when you go back and watch those episodes, they're very interesting. They're very weird. It's a weird country. And you can usually tell how strange a country is in the way they tell their stories and how they allow stories to be told. So I think this is a big part of this is just connecting with Canadians and having them have a home to talk about what influenced them, what helped them find maybe their own identity, understand somebody else's, maybe help them. I posted this on Instagram the other day to help you live more authentically, to see yourself. That's important for a lot of people. So Canada's done a really good job of being different. We live in this weird streamer world now where the stuff that was big here 15 years ago is finding new life around the world on streamers. So that's been great. But what does it mean for the actual Canadian stories we tell? We don't know. I think we're still looking at the tree and haven't quite seen the forest. But it's good to look back at all these shows. Do you know what it's like to try to tell somebody not from here what Hammy Hamster was? And then when you show them footage on YouTube and they look at it, that weird shot on DVD or like home DV cam, and somebody's narrating a GP, just a guinea pig walking. We're a crazy group of people, and I think we're an experiment that works sometimes. Yeah, and I love seeing it reflected back in the different eras of storytelling.
I know, it's like the Littlest Hobo. It's like, what, Timmy? Down the old mine shaft? Broken femur? What?
I'm working with an amazing team on this Wallop film in Vancouver, and Alex Craig is directing it, and he's from Scotland. Mm-hmm. And so he's been in Canada for a bunch of years now, but he talked about how the Littlest Hobo was so big in Europe, so big in Scotland and in England, and that they play the Littlest Hobo theme in pubs. They played in pubs and people sing along. And I think sometimes Canadians, because we are just overwhelmed by the madness south of the border, and we have our own madness here, it's easy to forget
Yeah.
just how cool the storytelling has been.
I get stuck in the comedy tradition of Canada when it comes to both film and television because I mean the greats who came out of SCTV, the comedy that came out of Kids in the Hall, Baroness von Sketch. I mean, there is no better than that, I think, when it comes to that sort of sketch comedy stuff. And Canadians, of course, famous all through the United States for being the writers of the best sketch comedy.
Absolutely. I think Meredith McNeil is a genius, what she did with Baroness von Sketch. That's my thing. I come from this SCTV camp. SCTV, what's hilarious House of Frightenstein into SCTV were the really, really fundamental shows for me when I was a kid. Seeing things, and of course, ultimately The National. I used to watch The National religiously. I used to watch The National when I was 10 years old. I loved that show. But SCTV was a fundamental building block for me as a storyteller. And what I loved about it was like a good band. No matter which episode you were watching, you had your favorite member.
Yeah.
So it was mostly Eugene Levy for me, who was my guy. But you just couldn't miss. And of course, I think a lot of what we're hearing when posted that we're doing this is people missing John Candy. And that's been a really lovely part about this that we're all missing.
I know, and every time I see a retrospective of him, you forget about just the sheer talent of the guy because you think of him as this comic genius. But I mean, he was, but he also could do drama.
People always say that comedy and tragedy are so closely aligned, and I think that is true. And I think that you don't see that very often in modern comedy. But when you go back through the Canadian comedy story, there's so much of that. I just rewatched an episode of Beachcombers with Gordon Pinson on it as a guest star. He played an East Coast shaman versus Jesse's grandfather, who he was channeling, and it was so funny and so dark at the same time.
Yeah.
Hypnosis and laughs and traditional treatments. And you're watching this thinking, why am I laughing at that? Because it's really funny. And I think you have to really understand the mix of comedy and tragedy to get the comedy to really work. And we do a great job of that here.
Well, and we're also, I mean, what we're seeing and what people are writing and what we're deciding to present is very different than it used to be because we have decided that there's a lot more to this country than the centers of Vancouver and Toronto and Montreal, and that, getting to all three coasts is important.
So important. I think on this first round, we're going to hit about 7 provinces in a territory. We can't hit every single one, obviously, but we are going to, over time, lock in as many stories. I think it is important. And I think, look, man, you know this. We're in the media. There are a lot of reasons to not like what people in the media do. And it really is easy to talk about contentious issues all the time because it sparks engagement. But there are areas where we have, unity. Yeah. And I had a friend of mine, a country singer in Alberta, text me yesterday. He saw the post, and he tried to tell me that we don't have a Canadian identity anymore, except for hockey and music. And I wrote back, don't agree. I don't agree. Maybe we'll end up on his farm, and we'll go riding horses and talk about that. And I do think that we have an identity. And what's interesting about our identity is it doesn't have to be one thing. And we have this version of the Canadian mindset that thinks, well, it's got to be defined this. It doesn't. It never has. And I think exploring our own history, the good stuff and the bad stuff, is important. If you're strong and believe in your country and you believe in what your country could be, then it should be able to withstand some reflection. And stories are the vehicle that I've been able to do it in my career. Mm-hmm. If I was a scientist, I might have chosen another way to explore this, but this is what I do. And I think, and I know the whole crew I'm working with, we are so excited to talk about FUBAR and Trailer Park Boys. Yeah. I remember, I don't want to say which one, but a prime minister's wife, and it might surprise you which one, but a prime minister's wife was once standing next to me at an event, and she saw Diener from FUBAR and damn near lost her mind and said to me, oh my God, you got to introduce me to Diener. And this is a prime minister's wife. And I looked at her and I went, this is the best moment ever. Hold on. Diener? So, like this is
Mila Mulrooney.
That's right. Close. Close. Not quite, but close. So yeah, I think that's and also like now you have Trades, which is doing so well, which is, and what Jared Keeso and his team with Shorzy and Letterkenny, of course, in the comedy space. Yes. Cardinal was an amazing dramatic. The evolution of Hugh Dillon from a great rock and roll singer to being on all kinds of shows, Yellowstone being as an actor, of course, and Hardcore logo with my biggest inspiration. And so after SCTV, it was Bruce McDonald that turned me on to telling stories. And now look at what he's doing with Mayor of Kingstown. There's just so much.
George, we have to wrap it because we're going to go back to the mine.
As we should.
Really appreciate you coming in. Good luck with this. I can't wait to see what it all looks like.
It's good to see you again, Bud.
Good
Thanks.
to see you. Thank you. George Stroumboulopoulos hitting the road with Telefilm Canada and a new campaign called The Stories That Made Us.